Praise the Lord and welcome to the Apostolic Church of God. My name is Brazier and we're doing something a little different here at Apostolic. In this world we live in, it is important that we have the tools necessary to journey through life as it relates to God and the things of God, to be able to engage in dialogue over some of the most important issues of our day. That is why our pastor, Dr. Byron Brazier, has created this very important program, The Question of Truth. Education, information, and formation, to have real conversation and discourse about the truth of God in our everyday lives. And today we're going to do just that with a group of amazing people. Joining our discussion is Kevin Huff. Kevin holds a Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree in Marketing and Management and an MBA in International Marketing and Strategic Thinking. As a senior banker, Kevin specializes in personal and commercial clients. Next up, we have Asia Bailey. Asia is a graduate of Alabama State University, where she received her Bachelor's of Arts degree in Communications, specializing in television and radio. Since her graduation in 2020, Asia has worked as a media director for the Alabama State University's football team, the United States Football League, and currently works as a social media manager for 2 major organizations. Next up, we have Amber Lofton. She is a graduate of Illinois State University, where she earned a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Theater Studies. She then attended Benedictine University and received a Master's of Public Health. Amber currently works as a student advocate and enjoys being able to help children become successful in and outside of the classroom. And rounding out our panel is Michael Thompson Jr., a graduate of the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign and the United States Marine Corps Officer Candidate School in Quantico, Virginia. Michael earned his Juris Doctor from the University of Illinois Chicago School of Law. He has managed federal and local government grant funding for workforce development and contracts. Welcome, welcome, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, how are we feeling? How are we feeling today?
Good.
Feeling good.
Good morning.
Good.
Well taken care of.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Welcome to the hot seat.
Yeah.
Like, getting nervous. Well, no, this is great. Thank you guys again for being here. Sometimes it's not easy opening up and having these vulnerable conversations.
Yeah.
So we appreciate you guys for being here. First question that I want to ask is, does God exist? It's been shown that 9 in 10 Americans believe that they're spiritual, but they don't believe that there's a specific God. So how would you respond to that? How would you answer that? Does God exist to you?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I do believe God does exist, but I do see where people say where they are spiritual and don't necessarily know what God they believe in, just because, especially at our age, we go through a lot of self-searching and soul-searching. Okay. And so if you've never been in certain situations where you needed to call on God or some things just happened, you wouldn't know. So you know he's out there, but you just haven't found that within yourself of knowing that God does exist.
To your point, I think when I was in undergrad, I was a philosophy major, and that was the first time in my life I'd even met people that considered themselves to be atheists or had different religious views or beliefs than mine coming up on the south side of Chicago. And it was fascinating, some of the arguments that you saw both for and against religion. And what really stuck for me was the idea of the argument of design, right? Like the universe, our bodies, the natural order of things. It takes an intelligent designer to create those mechanisms for them to work so perfectly together. And you just can't take a car, pull it down to its nuts and bolts, put it in a room and shake it up and create a car, right? Okay. So that same type of intelligent design, I think, is necessary when you talk about our universe.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, I do think that God does exist, but I feel like you have to be put in those specific situations, because at times, we do question like, okay, what's going on? But being put in those situations, you kind of get a sign like, okay, you know what? There's a God up there and he's looking out for me, you know what I'm saying? Okay. So when you have those conversations with people who haven't been put in those situations, as you said, then they don't really have an understanding like, okay, you know what, there is a God. So I do believe there is a God that does exist.
Okay.
Yes.
I think everyone teed it up to the right kind of platform that this really is, because I believe the existence starts with the relationship. And anything you have a relationship with, you believe in, you hear the voice of, you are guided by. And things that we just all mentioned that we've all been privy to are circumstances. So that I think that's where the spiritual starts, is the circumstances that actually happen. And they're just waiting for a consistent answer. But a consistent answer comes with a relationship.
There's an old phrase, there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you're really in that circumstance, when you really need something, you tend to find faith. Yeah.
And it's funny how you said relationships, because a lot of times we are introduced to God and church through our relationships from like our parents and our grandparents and like going to church. So when you get out into that real world, the relationship that you have with God essentially isn't your own until you start exploring who you are, what your relationship looks like. And your relationship with God is completely different from how it is with your mothers or your grandmothers or your friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's
Absolutely.
something personal. So, you know, it just takes like a lot of growth, you know, as you get older, developing that relationship and trying to figure that out.
And I'm glad you
know?
said that. That's the key word I'm hearing, relationship.
Yes.
So with that being said, how would you guys describe your relationship with God?
It's personal, right? Like I'm someone who very much believes that you lead by example. So if you are a Christian and you profess a relationship with God, you're better off leading by example and acting with that personal relationship than telling other people how to act and lead their lives.
You are the Bible that people will see for the first time. So I believe your behaviors, your acts, things of that nature does play into it. And more, just like Michael said, it's personal, but it's also consistent. If you're not consistent, it's not going to fathom, or it's not going to mature to the fact that you actually are making the effort. It's going to become something inconsistent.
So when you say consistent, do you mean like staying consistent as far as not only calling on God when you need something, or you know, times are bad, so just stay consistent all throughout?
Yes.
Good and bad times?
Just don't be a believer of his promises. Be a believer of trust, because that's the next step. After you're believing and after you start to or establish the relationship, now you have to trust him.
That's a big one. Yeah.
That consistency, I think, is a big part, because I feel like my relationship with God has been like a little roller coaster. Like I've always believed, I've always known that he was there, but I feel like as far as going to church and when I went to college, I kind of didn't go to church as much as I used to.
Why not? Why did you stop?
It was Sunday and I just didn't go. You know, it was I didn't have a car, or you know what I'm saying, or I just did not go. And I felt like my relationship kind of fell back from God a little bit. I still prayed and things like that, but I never got as close as I knew I should have been with him as for when I was at home and my mom was like, girl, we're going to church. Get up, let's go.
Right.
We're going to church. There was no push. And then I came back and, you know, I feel like my relationship with him has grown a little bit, but that consistency piece, that's something that I'm lacking. You know, I need to get back to being consistent to have that relationship that I want to have with him.
Absolutely. Okay, that's a great response. Yeah, and I piggyback with you off of that. Sometimes when you go out of state, you know, for school, all that type of good stuff, it's important to keep that balance of things, stay consistent, like you were saying as well, Kevin. So yeah, that's a big one. So other than that, like when people say, where's the truth of scriptures fit into your faith and relationships? So with like scriptures, how does that fit into your day to day?
I look at scripture like, and I think this is the way we were taught growing up, at least in apostolic, that you look at scripture in the Bible as almost like a manual for life, right?
Okay.
And it's not something that you necessarily take literal word for word. Something that I remember when I was very young, I remember Bishop saying in a sermon, God is not a celestial Santa Claus, right? There aren't miracles flowing from a Christmas, sleigh, coming out at nighttime, right? What it is it's putting your faith to work, right? And using the tools and the skills that God gave you to manifest his work on this earth.
Okay, I like that.
And I don't know, it's funny that you said that, just because the Bible and the scripture was made so long ago. And so,
okay, let's get into it. Right? Yes, come on, let's get into it.
And so I try and take pieces that make sense to me.
Yes.
Okay.
And what I'm necessarily going through. You know what I mean?
I mean, linguistically,
And
right?
I'm not the type of person where I can just, tell you like a scripture, like right off. I can't do that for you.
Okay.
But when I hear it, I can apply it to what's going on in my life. And what's funny is, just going back to how you know God exists, when I'm going through like tumultuous things in my life, or I'm trying to like make a decision, I'll be on social media and a scripture will pop up.
Okay.
Or I'll be like talking to somebody like my mom or my granny, and like they'll say something that like, but mind you, they don't know what's going on, but it just relates to what I'm going through.
Okay.
And I'll be like,
Okay.
okay.
To your point about the Bible being written a long time ago, there was also a lot of linguistic translations as well, right? So you know, the original Hebrew gets translated to Greek, the Greek gets translated to the King James Version in English, and when you look at certain words, those really matter, the etymology of those words. Something like light, right? Light, photo in Greek, that in its etymology used to mean knowledge, right? So you think about the concept of the burning bush and Moses, that light, was that just the light, the knowledge that God was giving him to save his people from the Egyptian slavers, right? Like those are the things you want to think about.
Yeah.
But those are the things I think about when you talk about like the literal translations of the Bible. You know.
Okay, so I heard a lot of you guys mention, like you said earlier, Amber, that when you're home, your parents, they bring you to church. Like, come on, we gotta go. So with that being said, how has your faith in God grown or developed since you were introduced to God by your parents or grandparents?
Well, I grew up in the church. I went to a Lutheran school all my life. So I went to a Baptist church, Lutheran school. And I think that time when I did come back from college, that's when my faith started to kind of grow.
Develop.
And develop. Because I started to get that relationship with God. I started to understand who he was on my own without my mom being like, we're going to go to church. So I really think coming back from college and some things happened. I was going through some hard times and I really had to call on him and he answered, he delivered. So I think that relationship between us got a little bit stronger in that time for me coming back from
going
school.
through your own personal
growth in situations.
Okay. Kevin?
Yeah, I would say mine is really interesting because how things started with my family at that point of time where we were at the shelter for a little bit. And Apostolic was one of the resources in that season for us. And for a while, I realized we were watching that church. Like I made kind of the connection, and then I was passing this church on the metro every day, and I'm like, wait, this is what we're watching. And I remember everything now. And for me,
Did you have a home church before then?
No.
No? Okay.
No, we would just watch it on TV, and it was no pressure to go, but it was a expectation to know.
Okay.
So just doing that, and then I'm around college. I think that's just that first page of our personal diary, spiritual diary to us. Like you want to start things well, or like recoup or reconfigure. And I felt like that was a time where I needed to like update what's surrounding me, and I wanted to be in a successful place. And I felt like this was something that helped us, and this is something I keep seeing, and in that big church that's the church, and I was attracted.
I mean, I think similar to everybody, it's a certain level of ownership that you take over as you get older with your faith. And then similar to your experience growing up in Apostolic, I was on the church baseball team. I was in Lions of Judah. I was in the Brotherhood Chorale. So Monday, Brotherhood Chorale. Right, exactly. Like Bible study on Wednesdays, Sunday service. We got baseball games on Saturdays. So I spent a lot of time with the church growing up.
Wow.
But then, as everyone said, you get older. Life takes you away from your home, your community. You step out into the world and you have different life experiences, some negative, some positive in the world. And there's just sort of like an anchoring that it brings you back to when you come home or you find a church home. And that anchor kind of helps, keep you set you on that right path.
So is there a difference, you think, between living a morally correct life versus a saved life?
like in the legal field, right, there's a difference between morality and the law, right? And I think when you talk about religion has a certain doctrine that's associated with it, but people who fall out of that doctrine still ascribe to a particular kind of morality, right? So if you can consider yourself a moral person, even if you're not a religious person, but I think if you're a religious person, it's hard for you to fathom a complete morality without your religion. If that makes sense? Yeah.
Yeah, I get where you're going with that.
I feel like you got to be both. Because to be saved, you have to have some type of moral compass on what is wrong, what is right, how to treat people. And within that, you can go into your spirituality and the word and apply that. You know what I mean? Like I said, a lot of saved people, they not right. You know?
What you mean by not right?
They don't.
Cast a lot of stones.
Yeah, they don't live by the word that they say they do.
Okay.
Like they're really judgmental. They want to pick and choose which scripture benefits them.
I would say one person bases their life on Sunday, and the other person bases their life Sunday through Sunday.
Oh.
And I think if I can put a label on each, the morale is the emotionally intelligent, so they can respond in the moment and actually do what's right and what most people will agree to. The other person is spiritually intelligent and they're a body language reader.
Yeah.
So you read, so you don't really need to hear the hint. You see the hint. You see the posture and all these things. So there, no part is wrong, but there is a percentage that you have to use in your 24 hours.
What about you, Amber? Do you think there's a difference?
No, I think I kind of agree with everybody, especially to the sense as like Asia was saying, like there are people that I have looked up to when I was younger, and I have been like, oh my gosh, they're in the church, they must be this great person, they must be this person doing well. And as I got older, I started to look at them and be like, wait a minute, on Sunday you this person, but when I talk to you on a different day, you're a totally different person. So I think that it encompasses, like, you have to be both in order. Yeah.
You say earlier, Michael, that sometimes you meet these people and sometimes they don't have a strong relationship with God. So they're really kind of looking at you to see how you do your day-to-day life, and if you're the person that's practicing what you preach, if you say. Do you guys feel like there's a pressure for you to maintain that morality, to be, walking a Christian faith, and because you know that others are leading, so leading with example by example, do you feel like that's difficult to keep up, or how do you feel about that?
It should be who you are naturally.
Yeah.
Like, if that's not how you are naturally, then that's a problem.
Okay.
Like, if you're putting on this front in front of certain people and then behind their back you're not acting or doing as you say, I feel like it's just a natural thing. And I'll be upfront with people, my faith isn't as strong as I want it to be, or I don't read the Bible every day. Like, I feel like if you're comfortable with saying that and comfortable with being upfront about it and knowing that you have to grow in it, then there's nothing wrong with it. You shouldn't be putting on a front in front of your friends just so they can think, that you have this almighty strong relationship with God. And everybody's relationship is different, so we shouldn't be judging by how they act. Yeah.
Okay.
As long as remind yourself, you can be an example, you're just not the template. And that's what takes the pressure off, because if you're trying to order or build the blocks up so perfectly, and then let's say one block falls over while you're trying to build up and someone's watching you, your reaction is what they're really going to grade you on. Like,
I like that. Exactly, right. They want to see how you're going to respond to these troubles that come your way. Yeah.
Yes. So then if you just offload it, just take the pressure off by saying, hey, I'm just one of and not the one, then you are more amped to do that can fall over and you can laugh about it, and the person helping you and doing, just that whole metaphor, just in manifestation, that can actually lead you to connecting closer to that person, or learning from that person, or allowing God to allow that person to do something into you that you thought you were doing into them.
Again, I think you all answered the question, being yourself, being natural. But I also think it comes down to as well, like, it makes me think about when you take like a professional oath, right? Like if you're a police officer, if you're a teacher, or if you're anyone that's engaged in a profession where you're required to be tested at times, right? And when that character is tested, how you perform in that test is what really defines who you are and who your character is. So, you know, if you're a religious person and you go through some adversity, how you persevere through that adversity is going to define your character as a religious person, right? The same way if you're a police officer and, you know, someone out in the street disrespects you, right? That shouldn't happen. They shouldn't disrespect you, but you took an oath to be a professional, right? So now you have to rise above that. So if you're a Christian and you want to act like a Christian, then you need to rise above whatever, you know, adversities you think give you an excuse to live below that line of morality.
So for the last question we have here, so I'm gonna, you guys listen up. What are the most common objections people raise against the validity of the Bible? And how can Christians respond? How can you as a Christian respond to that?
One that I hear a lot is the argument of evil, right? If God is all good and evil exists, then God should be able to stop evil, but evil exists, therefore there's no God, right? Like that's kind of like
I hear
that
one a lot
logic,
too.
right? But at the same time, we were just talking about how character has to be tested. If your faith never confronted evil, how do you know you have faith, right? So I think it's just one of those circumstances where God is putting you in a position to be tested and really live out your faith. And that's how I would respond to that.
Okay.
Just the whole, you know, science versus man and how, because there's so many current events that happens just about, that triggers a lot of these questions. It's about, you know, just the rights of women's body to just the relationship styles now that are very open these days. And just kind of, like Mike said, just good and evil. So a lot of the unrest that we've seen, you know, things that got caught on camera that has probably been happening forever, but we finally get to see it on camera.
That's another discussion, probably for the next segment. Another segment. But go ahead.
It's just those that are trying to find these very modern answers, and something that was created very long ago. But Dr. Brazier has done a very good job of, you know, talking about both the Old and New Testament, how they work together. In a way, I would say a good friend of mine and I have looked at it, one is old promises, one is new promises. And if you know how to kind of combine that and move forward, that's, if you can't understand that, then you will probably be very frustrated with things that happen organically in our lives, and you won't think the Bible will be the last thing you want to look at.
Nobody has ever really truly challenged me, but I will say I have questions like, okay, well, why do these bad things happen? And I'm sure everybody questions that. So I would just kind of like piggyback off of what they said as far as like evil and all of the things that are happening now. But we all know, like you said, like our faith has to be tested. We all have to be tested. And in order for us to get a confirmation, you know, like, okay, you hear me, you see me, and you understand. So.
Well, thank you guys so much.
Of course. That was great.
This
That was
has been
cool.
fun.
Yeah.
Well, that was just not long enough. But the good news is we'll be back next week to continue this special discussion. I want to thank Dr. Brazier for this great program, our amazing panelists, and a special thank you to you for watching today. We have a great day, and we'll see you next time on The Question of Truth. God bless.